Talking about consent is an important part of any healthy relationship, and it's a great way of checking in and making sure nobody feels pressured to do anything. Talking about what you want and don't want and respecting your partner's boundaries doesn't have to be serious, scary, or awkward. Consenting and asking for consent means that everyone is being clear about their wants and needs and that their partners are respecting each other's limits. Now, it's really important though that we pay attention to not just what somebody says, but also what their body does. Listen and look at body language and listen for tone. Sometimes people may hesitate or say no with their body, and that might be the most comfortable way that they know how to say no. And we need to look for that. And if you see hesitation, you see someone who they're unsure or wants to maybe slow down, we should stop. And in a respecting relationship, we should check in and make sure that the person is comfortable at every point going through an intimate encounter. Okay, very important to check in. So how do you exactly ask for consent? It's really simple. You ask something like, can I kiss you? Or I'd really love to kiss you. Would you like to do blank with me? Are you comfortable going any further? Things like that are ways to check in that aren't scary and awkward and can actually be kind of nice and make someone feel respected throughout an experience with someone. If your partner says no, doesn't say anything, or says yes but seems maybe unsure or uncomfortable, that's not consent, and you don't have consent, and you should stop doing what's happening. Maybe not kissing you back, something like that can indicate that someone wants to slow down and they're not comfortable with what's happening. But if you get someone who's like yes and makes it clear that they're into what's happening, then you have consent. Next, we're going to watch a video that's going to use the metaphor of riding a bike to consent. And I know it sounds like a stretch, but it makes sense. And we're going to take a look at some of the trickier aspects of a consent and when it's not given and when it's not okay. All right, so let's take a look.
Let's think about consent like a bike ride. If you wanted to go on a bike ride with someone, you'd say, hey, I'd like to go on a bike ride with you. And they'd be like, hey, I'd like to go on a bike ride with you. Boom. Put on your helmet, kid. You're going on a bike ride. You might hear things like, this feels great, or keep going. These are ways you know they're enjoying the bike ride. Maybe not those ones. If they said no, then that's that. They do not want to go on a bike ride with you. You don't toss them up on a bike and say, oh come on, it'll be fun. No is no. And if they don't say anything at all, it's still a no. The absence of a yes is a no. They could say, heck yeah, or I might want to. And you put on your biker shorts, get the bike, grab the helmets, and in that time they decided that they don't want to and start to backpedal. And that's okay. They aren't obligated to go on that bike ride. You'll just have to bike on your own. Oh, and being dressed in bike shorts and a helmet doesn't automatically mean someone wants to ride a bike. It's quite presumptuous to think they do. Even if you happen to be in a relationship with your bike partner, you have to ask each and every time. Say your bike partner has had a couple of drinks, and we're not talking about water. They're not ready to go for a bike ride, even if they've told you they are. A drunk yes is not a sober yes, and by law, you need a sober yes. Oh, and just because you bought them drinks all night, it does not entitle you to a bike ride with them. Same rules apply if they're unconscious. Conscious people can't ride bikes, and they definitely can't say yes to doing so. The number one priority is to make sure they're safe. Even if they're just sleeping, they can't say yes to a bike ride. And it can be a scary thing to wake up and find yourself on a bike. Imagine your boss telling someone, you can only work here if you bike with me to work. That's crossing the line. It would be an abuse of power for a boss or a person of influence to suggest such a thing. And just because someone wanted to go for a bike ride once, doesn't mean they'll want to every time. Maybe it was just a one bike stand. You can't say, what are you talking about? We biked last night. You're simply not entitled to another bike ride if they don't want to. Maybe your fellow cyclist is totally cool with biking on paved roads. That does not mean that they are up for extreme mountain biking. You're not going to insist that they go speeding down a mountain with you if they are only interested in paved roads. That's uncomfortable territory, and you don't want to pressure your bike partner, do you? What if Alex here told you that Taylor really wants to ride bikes with you? Does that mean you throw Taylor up on a bike and say, "All right, let's start pedaling"? No. The only person that could say Taylor wants to go for a bike ride is Taylor. When all is said and done, riding a bike with someone should be fun, memorable, and hey, maybe a bit sweaty. But it can only be that way when everyone involved has willingly agreed to participate. So whether it's having sex or bike riding, consent is key.
So let's unpack that video a little bit and let's take a look at what consent does not look like and some of the warning signs that consent is not given or things that you should watch for. Okay. All right. What consent does not look like? Assuming that dressing sexy or somebody flirting with you or someone accepts a ride or a favor or a drink, you buy a meal, any of those things does not mean someone's consenting to anything other than spending time with you. Okay. So nobody owes someone something or should repay someone in any physical way because they did a favor for them. Saying yes or saying nothing while under the influence of drugs or alcohol, big one, big one. When alcohol and drugs are involved, consent gets really tricky. And it doesn't matter if you were the one drinking that was the perpetrator, the person who made someone do something more than they wanted to, you're still responsible for your behavior. Okay. You can't say, "Oh, I didn't know what I was doing. I was drunk." Both parties really need to be sober. A sober yes is consent. A drunk yes is not. Saying yes or giving into something because someone feels too pressured or afraid to say no. So if somebody keeps egging someone on and they're like, "Come on, I really love you. If you really cared about me, you would do this. Or if you don't do this, I'm going to leave you." Things like that are not cool. Not cool. Nobody should have to manipulate someone to get their way. Okay. And if somebody's doing that, that's a very unhealthy situation. And if that's something that you do to get your way, you got to stop. That's not appropriate in this type of situation. Someone asking over and over and over again until someone gives in, or if they say, "Oh, I just can't stop," something like that, that's not cool either. That's not something that a situation someone should put another person in. Okay. And I promise you, if, a parent walked into the room, you could probably stop. Okay. So somebody saying they can't stop is not cool. These are some red flags, right? Look for these. If you see these things, I would probably distance myself from this person. Might be an unhealthy dating relationship. Okay. So if somebody is pressuring or guilting you into doing things you don't want to do, or you may not want to do, they make you feel like you owe them because you're dating or they gave you something. If they react negatively with sadness or anger or resentment, if you say no to something or you don't immediately say yes, if you hesitate, they make you feel bad, like, "Oh, you don't love me, do you?" or something like that. That's manipulative behavior. Okay. When someone ignores your wishes and they don't pay attention to nonverbal cues, someone is pulling or pushing away and they still continue and they're not listening to that, that's a big red flag. If someone has to manipulate or exhibit controlling behavior to, get things that they want, all of that is not cool. Okay. Really quick, just to kind of wrap some of this up, I do need to define some terms. All right. Okay. You probably have heard the term sexual misconduct in the news before. And basically, this is the coercion piece. This is when someone uses tricks or threats or inappropriate use of their power to get someone to agree to sexual contact. So that might be, when there's different power in a relationship, like a boss and an employee, for example. Okay. So in that video, it talked about it wouldn't be okay for a boss to make their employee bike to work with them to work there, right? So for someone to say, oh, to work here, or if you want to get a promotion, or if you want a raise, or you want something that I have the power to give you, you got to give me something. That's sexual misconduct, and that is not okay. That's a crime. Sexual assault. This is the use of threat, force, or violence to obtain sex or sexual contact without the willing consent of the victim. Okay. This is the most extreme form of sexual assault would be rape. And other forms of sexual assault might include like pinching or grabbing, slapping, otherwise touching sexual organs without the consent of that person. Okay. This is, again, a crime. And someone can go to jail for this. And this is something someone should report if it happens to them. Date rape and acquaintance rape are some other terms you might hear. And that's usually someone that is in a dating relationship or somebody that they know that, did this sexual assault. Okay. Sexual harassment is another term. And this is when somebody might, make sexual advances or requests for sexual favors. They might make comments, verbal comments. Maybe they're making like a meme online, something that's inappropriate and sexual in nature, that's unwelcome by the other person who it's directed to. Okay. The harassment often contains an implied threat that something bad will happen, and the victim doesn't comply or continues after someone has been asked to stop. Catcalling falls under sexual harassment. When there's a group of people and there's one person who's attractive walks by and that group whistles or, says, woohoo, nice butt, or something like that, that's sexual harassment. And that's not something that, like when that person who's being catcalled, that doesn't make them feel good that day. It's actually quite embarrassing. And it can be really awkward and uncomfortable. And if you like someone, there's better ways to show someone that you like them than to just go, hey, whoo, looking good, right? There's better ways to show someone that you like them. Okay. All right. So those are the major terms I just wanted to cover today. But you guys, in a nutshell, all these behaviors are illegal, and the perpetrator can be charged, prosecuted, and even convicted, fined, or imprisoned. Okay, this is a really important thing that we discussed today. What can you do? Well, first of all, I know sometimes we see this behavior happening. We might see something that looks like a red flag. Maybe somebody is not respecting someone's no and they tell you, or you see something happening at a party, something like that. Speak up, say something, be an upstander. If you see something, tell a teacher. If it happens at school, tell an adult, a parent, a friend, somebody you trust, a law enforcement. Speak up, tell someone what's happening and what you see. We got to look out for each other. We want to be apathetic about this. If you see something, we need to stand up for each other and look out for each other. All right. Watch out for these warning signs we talked about, those red flags. Listen to your gut, your instincts, right? You know when something doesn't look or feel right, and don't ignore yourself. Know that you have the right to decide who touches you. We all do. Okay? And if you have something happen to you, tell someone and ask for help. There's definitely help out there. And here's some great resources. So you can check out our school counselors on campus. There's South Bay Families Connected, which has a virtual teen center. That's the website right there. You can also even text 22522 and write love is. And there's these peer advocates that are available 24/7 that can help talk to you if something doesn't feel right. Seek out some resources. And you guys also, I hope you join me on Friday. I'm going to be on campus on Friday, and I want you guys to join me in the auditorium where we're going to be showcasing a skit, Yes, No, Maybe So Cafe. And we're going to be talking more about coercion, and the whole week, like our whole subjects this week, we're going to have a discussion about healthy relationships and consent. So I hope to see you there during lunch in the auditorium. All right. Thank you for listening to me this week. I hope you learned something that was helpful, and I hope to see you on Friday. Bye bye.